$50 service charge on alternator belt replacement. You believe it? And this company don't even pay a dime in taxes. I mean, I pay my taxes and I'm the little guy. I don't understand how somebody so big don't want to pay their taxes. You're gonna be promoted to desk clerk soon. That's what I like about America. You can do anything you want. Oh, just so you know, Mr. Ball sits first, so just make sure you let him sit first. Oh, what'd you say your name was again?
Mr. Maine, President of the Florida National Bank.
Like I said, just make sure you let him sit first.
Just in time, Roger. I was beginning to think you didn't want to be here.
The board meeting dragged on.
Call was scheduled for 10.
Yes, Mr. Maine.
What are your thoughts on the meeting with Senator Robertson?
He likes his duck.
That's a Virginian for you. What else does he like?
Well, he's a politician. He likes his vacations.
You talked about the exemption for the trust.
He said it'd be no problem.
What does he want in return?
More vacations.
I said, what does he want in return? Man has needs, Roger.
He's got a military base.
Mr. Crisp understands needs. Willis! Thank you for calling. Know you're busy up there in Washington. Oh, Smathers? Oh, thank you, sir. Yeah, he ran a hell of a campaign. Pepper? I don't care what he does as long as he doesn't run for Senate. So, Roger tells me you had a great time fishing up there in the Bahamas. Well, I know you're busy, sir. Just wanted to call and check on the status of the bill. Well, I know you have a lot on your plate. I was talking about the bank holding company, of course. I wanted to make sure the trust was still on the list of exemptions. You're not sure? You know, General Ridgway and I were hunting up in Tennessee recently. Oh, yes, sir. Got a whitetail the first day out. Yeah, he was telling me that he is very upset about the fact that Fort Belvoir is closing down. I told him we'd do anything we possibly could to make sure that didn't happen. I appreciate anything you can do, sir.
Mr. Ball, Senator Robinson led me to believe
Bourbon,
that...
Danny.
How'd it go?
Fine, just fine.
John Sykes called.
Union John Sykes?
Yes, ma'am.
Tell him the senator is busy.
It's the third time.
Tell him the senator is still busy.
He's asking for you, ma'am. Ma'am?
It's nothing.
This is serious,
No,
ma'am.
it's a prank.
It's serious.
It is serious when you can't pay the rent.
You need to call the police.
I will get to it.
Senator Pepper needs to know.
Evelyn?
You cannot ignore this. You want to be like those other dead commies?
Mildred! Mildred! Where is my paperweight?
It's on your desk.
I left it right there. I've looked in the drawers, the side table, I've been all over this room.
Let's look.
I don't keep it there, I leave it right here. Listen, I don't need help if someone's gonna come in here and mess everything up.
Here it is. I'm sure Evelyn just forgot.
I cannot function when everything is changed around.
I'll make sure I talk to
I
her.
don't want anything else in this room touched. Understood?
Senator, you need
Not
to
now,
know.
Evelyn.
You need to know that we have been receiving.
Evelyn?
Yes. Mr. Henderson, one moment, please. Yes, Mr. Henderson, I have the papers right here. But you're gonna need representation for these easements. You need to understand the ramifications. Have a good day, sir.
Have you called Jim?
I need to finish this brief.
He owes you a
He
favor.
doesn't need me bothering him.
The bank said no.
Paul said no.
Yes, Paul said no. Said he wouldn't be caught dead doing business with a commie. We cannot continue
Well, the
like this.
economy has not been good.
My parents said if we needed any
We don't need their help.
I have waited and I have been patient. I have listened to you and I have not listened to you. I have been spit on and cursed at and called every name in the book. I have been here every step of the way, and I will be here every step of the way. But I am telling you now that I have got to be with the man who hasn't forgotten who he is.
What's my name?
It is your name.
It was my reputation.
And they're still beating you. You are not your father.
Do not bring my father into this. Do not bring him into this.
There are other people living with your decision.
Man, you cannot ignore these threats.
We have already employed one person who did not abide by us. If you cannot abide by what I do here, you are free to leave.
Mrs. Pepper, I've been calling.
Mr. Sykes, the senator is not at home.
Mrs. Pepper, I just wanted a moment of your time. Ma'am, do you need anything?
You know what I need, Mr. Sykes? I need a pair of shoes. Absolutely. You know, the ones that open in the front. They tell me they're a bit painful to wear, but I'm a woman, Mr. Sykes. I believe I can bear it.
Would you like to get some lunch?
Shoes last much longer, Mr. Sykes.
I just wanted to talk to you
Mr.
about...
Sykes, you are coming between me and a pair of shoes.
Mrs. Pepper, this is about Ed Ball.
I know why you're here. I'm surprised why you're here. There was a time the senator could count on your support.
He can.
Perhaps you haven't noticed, but these days, nobody supports anybody.
If you could just let me speak to
What
the
makes you think Senator Pepper would be the least bit interested in having a conversation about Ed Ball?
Mrs. Pepper, we want to take him down.
Well, good morning. Boys, this is Senator Pepper. Ran a hell of a campaign against me.
George, Washington's too hot already.
Too hot to breathe.
Well, if you live there long enough, you get used to the heat.
How's Mildred?
She's fine. She's busy with the Democratic Women's Club and the Taylor Beautification Project
I hear you've been practicing law.
since 1950.
Now, you're taking on...
Right of way. Some tort. McCarran's immigration bill is getting a lot of support.
I wouldn't worry about it.
Supporting people for subversive activity?
I wouldn't worry about it. It's Washington politics.
Well, you see, now I am worried. It's national politics.
The bill won't make it past Truman, even with the veto.
And who's going to decide who's a suspected subversive?
You can't be too careful.
Oh, yes, George, best keep all those Eastern Europeans out.
This country does not want to be overrun by subversives.
Suspected subversives.
We are 100% behind the House Un-American Activities Committee. This Congress will not allow itself to be overrun by communists.
People.
When it comes to communists, there are no people. Claude, you always did have ideals. Oh, do you hear Ed Ball got control of the Florida East Coast Railway? Well, you know, Governor Warren is waiting. Oh, we better get going. But hey, if you're ever up in D.C., you look us up, all right? Rosemary and I would love to take you out to dinner. You say hi to Mildred for me, will you? Take care, Claude.
Boy, that show, The Honeymooners, I watch those reruns all the time. That Ralph is a god, huh? Hey, you ever watch it?
I can't say that I do.
Well, he was trying to get a promotion, so Norton sets him up on a golf date with his boss. He doesn't know anything about the game, so he tells him he shoots 2 on the par, and so he starts practicing. He hits his neck, starts swinging his hips. Boy, I tell you, that Ralph tries so hard to get ahead, he never does.
Well, maybe if he was in a union, he'd have it better.
Yeah?
Sure, he'd have benefits, guaranteed lunch.
You know a lot about the unions?
I represent them.
That's so. Oh, before I forget, don't sit down before Mr. Ball sits down. You don't like that.
Here, we don't bite.
Mr. Sykes. Mr. Ball? Mr. Sykes.
Mr. Sykes, please. How was Miami?
Mr. Ball, I didn't come here to discuss the weather. The union has conceded to over half of the proposed hourly wage increase. These terms were negotiated at the national level. Every railroad in the country are abiding by them.
Unfortunately, Mr. Sykes, I don't have to deal with every railroad in the country. I only have to deal with the Florida East Coast Railway.
You risk angering the administration.
I don't work for the government.
The post office and the military will embargo your railroad beginning next week. You will lose revenue.
I'm already losing revenue. You've been featherbedding for years. This is 1958. There's no need for a third fireman. We run diesel, not coal-powered locomotives.
You will go out of business.
That may be a bit premature, Mr. Sykes.
The railroads are governed by a public interest. If you think that you can get
The
away...
railroad is a privately owned company.
You couldn't have gotten control of the FEC without our support.
And I sincerely appreciate that. But that was 1944.
We have the support of all union and non-union members.
You know, there's an order here, Mr. Sykes. In order to have a union, you have to have a job.
Well, that may be a bit premature, Mr. Ball. In order to offer a job, you need to have a company.
John Sykes.
Senator?
I can always tell when someone's uncomfortable in the muck.
I've been waiting for months.
Yeah, you must be pretty uncomfortable.
Yeah, this place is really down here.
Yeah, you get used to it.
I asked Mildred where you were.
Well, she's a pretty good guesser, don't you think?
Claude, I'm not going to take no for an answer.
You fish much, John?
Not really, Senator.
Oh, well, you do not know what you're missing until you've reeled in a bass. Those 8-pounders, they can really fight you. Can't say as I blame them much, though. After all, who'd want to be yanked from their home?
You heard about the strike? Senator, it was a mistake not to support you in the '44 election. Ball's hired scabbed laborer, and he's refusing to give our men their jobs back. He's being embargoed.
NASA didn't embargo him, so Ed Ball still has a revenue stream and chew over a barrel.
That's what I came to talk to you about. The legislature, it's redistricting since the census. A 3rd congressional district is opened up north of Miami.
I think you have forgotten that I'm a liability.
It's 93% Democratic.
Oh, a communist.
Claude, this is 1962. If you run for the 3rd congressional district in Miami, we will support you. Ball's made it clear he won't oppose you in a House race.
Oh, John, you did not come all the way here to Tallahassee and trudge through a swamp just to ask me to run for Congress.
The DuPont Trust has an exemption that was rolled in with the Bank Company Holding Act. Under the exemption, the trust can own the St. Joe Paper Mill, the Florida National Bank, and the Florida East Coast Railway. If we can convince Congress to repeal that exception, then the trust will be forced to divest and Ball will have to release his hold on the railroad.
Miami's mayor's been going after Ball for years.
But he's never gone after the source.
Senator Robertson is a friend with Ed Ball.
Our lawyers have made it clear that once the exemption is made public, there's no way it can hold.
Ed Ball is a very formidable man.
Yes, but you know Wright Patman.
I lost a bet to that big Texan.
We've already had preliminary discussions with him and Senator Morse. They're ready to present this to the Banking Committee at the next Congress. Claude, you've always stood for the common man. Men are not only losing their jobs, they're losing their homes. All they're asking for is a wage they can live on. You can give that to them.
I'm wearing out the shoes that Charlie wore, walking back and forth across the floor. Thank you. The troubles that drove him away, I've got for company. The 150?
Senator,
These nights in Charlie's shoes are killing me.
Senator,
Sergeant
I
Howard.
never knew
Senator,
that
we need to
Charlie's
go.
shoes could have so many tags.
Sergeant Howley.
Senator Pepper? Ha!
What happened to you, son?
What happened? Life happened, Senator. No? I got fixed up at the breakers there, and I went back in, and I got hit at Ewo, and I lost my eye. So they discharged me. I got a job at the mill back home until my eyesight started acting up. Like the good one. And they let me go. So I tried to go back in for Korea, and they laughed me right out of the recruiting station. So I got me a job here. I'm a self-employed man, Senator. Every little dream I built.
How long ago were you let go from the mill?
Let's go, Senator.
Sergeant Halling, how long were you let go from the mill?
10 years. No use for a man that can't see. Of disappointing sorrows, and I wish he'd take 'em back.
'Cause I'm wearing out the shoes that Charlie wore, walking back and forth across the floor. But troubles
Castro's implementing agrarian reform.
Mm-hmm.
Diaz is saying that Castro will put a system in Cuba much stronger than Russia has, and that communist sympathizers will hold high government positions.
What's this?
It's a meal. Pre-anniversary. Ham and cheese.
But that's not for another 6 months.
Oh, well, then half anniversary.
How did your trip to the Capitol go?
Oh, well, there was a lot to see.
You took your pole out.
Mhm.
Did you catch anything?
Nope.
Bull redfish are in season.
John Sykes came to see me, as you know. He says District 3's opened up just north of Miami.
The demographic.
85% Democratic. I ran into a GI I met about 15 years ago. And he was wounded. And now he's homeless and begging on the streets. Almost didn't recognize him. Don't look at me like that, Millie. I am 60.
The Red Scare is over.
Oh, well, the business is doing well.
You have union support.
They could still crucify me.
Ed Ball will not oppose you.
Still can't believe it. Can't get a job. Nothing. After serving this country.
Congressman Pepper.
An already tense situation surrounding the Florida East Coast Railway strike was marked by violence today as a bombing outside of Jacksonville derailed 32 railroads.
See, the only thinking some of them ever do in Congress is to try to destroy the competition by using a smear word. And I have every right to remember those tactics, as do you, calling everyone on the people's side a communist.
A second criminal blast struck near St. Augustine.
See, we are not slanderers and libel of people's character. We believe every man must have his say, even if he is wrong, because we want to have our say, even if he thinks we are wrong. See, that is the America today. We do not believe in tyranny over thinking, or speaking, or writing, or worshiping, or anything else. Yes, that is a part of the great inheritance of the American liberty and freedom. What phase are they in?
Prosecution's still introducing evidence.
Well, what's their argument?
Well, they just found pieces of bomb material, and they allege the same supplies have been found at Vedder's house.
That is not good.
It's circumstantial at best. They can't prove anything.
Well, it'll be hard to change a jury's mind.
Not even 5 minutes. Back in Washington, and you are already in a debate. What is it this time?
The FEC Railroad's bombing trial.
Strikers are out of work.
3 years.
Oh, they named 2 of your men in that, right?
Yes, Congressman.
Oh, that is a tough one. Woo! All the jury will see is the damage. You say the trial is in Miami?
Yes, Congressman.
You couldn't get a change of venue?
No, sir.
Well, they'll have to appeal.
Well, appeal or no, your boys are going through one conviction. At least we've got Claude here.
Well, I'm glad you thought of me, right?
And back on board to chair the House Banking and Currency Committee. Mr. Ball's days are numbered. How is the vote count coming on that amendment to repeal the DuPont exemption?
Well, we have every confidence we have the votes needed to get it passed.
Well, we will never live it down
Our
if we don't.
lawyers are working around the clock.
Mildred! Oh, you look lovely as always.
Now, you two aren't corralling my husband into a political debate, are
Oh,
you?
now, Millie, it's the other way around. Did you know it? Senator Smathers, what a pleasure.
Really right.
Congratulations on your campaign, Claude. Here's to redistricting.
About time Florida got something right.
Well, seeing as we've got a Texan as vice president, I'm not going to disagree with you.
This is too good a song to pass up. Claude, do you mind?
Oh. I hear you've been filibustering the Civil Rights Bill for 2 months now.
It will never.
It's what the people want.
The whites or the Negroes?
Oh, Claude, always ready for a debate.
Perhaps Congress should do more on this issue.
Do you really think the people of Florida want to be out of their jobs?
The Florida East Coast Railway is...
They put men out of work and hired scab labor.
The times are changing, Claude. The unions are done. The people want new homes, new cars.
Well, I'm glad to see you've changed, George.
It's always a pleasure.
Congressman Pepper, why all of a sudden are you reviewing the DuPont Trust exemption to the Bank Holding Company Act?
This is not a sudden event. The BHCA has been in the process of being reviewed for years. Now, we simply feel that the DuPont Trust, being run more as a business empire rather than a trust, should not be allowed to own the vast array of businesses it does today. The Florida National Bank, the St. Joe Company, and the Florida East Coast Railway. We feel that the DuPont Trust continues to maintain a stronghold on the economy of Florida and a monopoly that adversely affects competition from the Sunshine State.
But the exemption was sponsored by Senator Robertson. Are you saying he was funded by Ed Ball?
The work this committee is doing to protect the very things that magnified and precipitated the banking crisis of the Depression is not going to be clouded by statements of retribution.
Will Ed Ball be called to testify?
We will be subpoenaing anyone we feel will be able to enlighten us as to why the DuPont Trust was given this exemption and why it should continue to hold this exemption.
But will Ed Ball be called to testify?
Your baiting does not suit you, Carl, even if you are from the Orlando Sentinel.
Could you please state your name for the record?
Ed Ball.
Thank you for coming in today, Mr. Ball.
Actually, I was wondering why I'm here. I'm wondering why this committee is wasting taxpayers' time on such special interest legislation.
You are the owner of the DuPont Trust, is that correct?
I'm the manager of the DuPont Trust.
How long have you been manager of that trust?
25 years.
And as manager of that trust, have you ever avoided taxes?
I have supplied this committee with all the paperwork it needs to show the trust has paid its taxes.
Well, is it not true that your sister receives a salary from this trust?
My sister's salary is taxed. This is amazing. My sister's income is taxed and has been taxed since the trust's inception in 1938.
But it is true that the DuPont Trust does not pay taxes.
The trust is not required to pay taxes by law.
Well,
It's
Mr.
a
Ball?
charitable trust.
Well, Mr. Ball, could you please explain why the DuPont Trust was exempted from the Bank Holding Company Act?
Congressman, I'm not a member of Senate, so I would not know.
But it's the only listed exemption in the bill.
I was not aware of that.
Mr. Ball, do you know of Senator Willis Robertson?
Many people know Senator Robertson.
Do you know Senator Robertson?
I have known him socially on many occasions.
Senator Robertson is the reason why the exemption was included in the bill. Now, how would you characterize your relationship with Senator Robertson?
I have known him socially.
You have hunted and dined with him.
I believe that is socially.
And you don't know how the provision got into the bill.
Neither I nor anyone associated with the DuPont Trust appeared before the committee seeking that exemption.
You never discussed the exemption with Senator Robertson when you saw him on these trips?
We hunted deer.
Mr. Ball, you have said that the DuPont Trust is a charitable trust.
As you have in the papers before you.
A charitable trust that owns the St. Joe Paper Mill, the Florida National Bank, and the Florida East Coast Railway.
Congressman, these are all questions you know the answers to.
Is it not true, Mr. Ball, that you are the largest private landowner in the state of Florida?
Again, these are all questions answered in the paperwork before you.
Mr. Ball, you have stated that the DuPont Trust is a charitable trust.
Mr. Chairman, I did not know that I was being asked to come here to repeat myself.
Please answer the question.
Yes. It is a charitable trust.
For the record, I would now like to read from the will of Mr. Alfred DuPont. My trustees are hereby directed to pay off at convenient intervals from the said corporation the net income of my said estate to the care and treatment of crippled children and the care of old men and women, and particularly old couples.
We have cared for many crippled children.
How many?
I don't recall.
How many old people have you cared for?
These are questions that have the answers in the papers before you.
Well, let me tell you how many people you have cared for. You have cared for 62 crippled children in the 25 years as manager of that trust. You have cared for no old people in those 25 years. Now, Mr. Ball, why has so little been given as was willed by Mr. Alfred DuPont?
These are answers that are in the paperwork before you, Congressman.
Mr. Ball, what is the value of the DuPont Trust?
I don't look at those numbers on a daily basis.
You are the manager of that trust. Is that not a number that you are familiar with?
You have your papers.
Well, then let me read it. Seems that in 1939, the DuPont Trust was valued at $58 million. It is now valued at $500 million. $500 million. Mr. Ball, would you believe that the DuPont Trust has been able to withstand this strike because of the economic power that has been concentrated since the exemption of that trust?
The trust has been able to survive because of sound business practices.
Well, then, is it not true that any business that leases your land must do business with the Florida National Bank? Now, in your opinion, Mr. Ball, is that because of a land monopoly or because of a sound business practice?
You and your cronies, you sit up there with your degrees, like the world is your coconut.
Would you say that is a sound business practice?
You just think that everyone should be awed by your skills. You're experts who don't want to work.
Is that a sound business practice?
You and people like you are going to be responsible for bringing down the best form of government known to man.
Is that a sound business
You
practice?
make your
Mr.
living
Ball?
off the backs of people who have lived and worked and struggled for their living.
Is that a sound business practice?
You and people like you are going to lead us down the path to socialism and economic ruin.
Paul, I suggest you accord this committee the courtesy it deserves.
I am giving this committee the courtesy it deserves.
That is enough, Mr. Ball. This committee is in recess until 1 o'clock.
And in other news, the Senate today voted to amend the Bank Holding Company Act to revoke the exemption of the DuPont Trust. This means that the trust must divest its assets. It currently owns the St. Joe Paper Company.
Congressman, we can't thank you enough for all your help. We're so happy to see the breakup of the DuPont Trust.
Well, don't be surprised. Ball will come after you. He holds a grudge.
Yes, but now he won't wield the power he once had.
Congratulations on your campaign, Claude.
This wasn't a campaign, George. I didn't sell out.
This is it. And responded to the divestiture.
Well,
Front page.
we'll read it, Millie.
Ed Ball faces people's power. The U.S. Senate and House both have decided that the days of favor for Ed Ball, Florida tycoon, are over. The Florida DuPont estate no longer will be able to hold the economic and political power of owning a string of banks as well as other profitable ventures.
Call Sykes.
It was a bitter defeat for a man who has successfully defied the Labor Department and has kept the Florida East Coast Railway strike, the longest in American history, from being settled for more than 12 years.
Call John.
In what amounts to a surprise, Ed Ball, the Irishman who has been the biggest figure in Florida finance for 38 years, has agreed to get the Alfred I. DuPont Trust out of the banking business. The Federal Reserve Board announced Tuesday this will most certainly deal a blow to the unions who had been expecting a victory in the 12-year-old strike with the management of the FEC. New shoes?
Oh, it's the same old, same old.
Do you need help with that tie?
Nope. It's perfect.